Hi there. It's great to be back. Well, great to be back in Zim. I'm not sure about hanging out with you guys. But I see you guys had an interesting show last week. You had a good whiskey without me.
Sadly, I missed you a little bit.
I missed me too.
Oh, I did miss you.
There was
But I was
nobody to control
envious.
you.
No, but I was envious. You were in Kenya, Nairobi.
Yes.
Yeah, how was that?
Yes, your favorite place in the world, East
Well,
Africa.
not my favorite place in the world. Let's get that right. It's not my favorite place in the world.
What is your favorite place?
I think maybe between Paris and Harare. I think one of those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I do like Kenya. I do like East Africa, Tanzania, Ethiopia especially. But yeah, tell us, how was the experience?
No, it was phenomenal.
Mm.
I haven't been since pre-COVID, but it's just mind-blowing how that economy is moving forward. At such a fast pace, even when the rest of the world stood still
During COVID.
During COVID. I also had the opportunity to look at some of the macroeconomic numbers, and interestingly, our very own president has been quoting Kenya as a case study.
Misquoting.
He's been quoting them as a case study, and I think it's not the worst case study he could make. It's certainly a good case study. I mean, they've doubled their economy in less than 10 years.
So has the rest of Africa, by the way.
And what have we done?
Oh, we've gone merrily
way.
in the opposite direction.
Opposite
Well,
direction.
no, our economy has grown. Oh, by the way, what are you drinking?
Well,
I'm just so excited about East Africa. No, I understand. Well, okay, I'm not sure. I understand your fascination.
No. It's definitely that. I mean, the first time I went to Kenya, I actually remember it. It was in 2008, and it was just after the horrendous
Killings.
Why are you putting
killings
ice in
that
my
had
glass?
happened.
Okay, so you can swap.
And it was for a book show, actually, Story Mojo. And I've subsequently gone to a number of the Story Mojo festivals, and I've sort of seen how Kenya has developed, or East Africa at the time has developed. If you remember, during that period, I almost made an investment in Tanzania around 2008 because I could see that, where these countries are going, it's probably way more. The growth is way more than what one would expect in Zimbabwe. And I'll tell you what it is. It's like the guys were trying, the politicians were trying. This was the time when you had Kikwete. It was the time when you had
Kibaki.
Kibaki had sort of started it, but you could tell that the politicians were actually trying to make it work, and they were asking the right questions. They were engaging everybody, all the stakeholders, and they were asking the right questions.
Yeah, but yes, you're right. But because we're an economic policy show, let's come down to economic policy.
Okay.
I mean,
Are you
one thing.
drinking from condoms again today?
This is Oi Ocha. It's a Japanese tea. Smells divine.
Okay. And what are we having?
So this is a gift from the other George, who founded and runs the solar company Valsa. So it's important to give him a mention and thank him. So it's from the House of Glenfiddich. It's Project XX, and it's basically an experimental whiskey. They got outside malt masters to come and select. They got 20 people to come and select 20 different casks to make this. It was an experiment that they ran, and then the convener liked it so much they decided to stick to that formula and issue this Project XX
Nice.
version. So I have no idea. This is my first time trying it. I have no idea what it's like or if it's any good.
It's a bit underwhelming on the nose.
Well, you put ice in your glass. Ice cools it down and basically constrains the flavors.
It's still more underwhelming than the other stuff we've had.
He
I'm
puts
sure.
ice in all these whiskey.
I always
So
try to have
That's
ice.
a constant.
I also use ice and water, but when I want to taste the whiskey for the first time,
Now, I'm just saying your argument doesn't hold any water because he puts
Pun intended.
no pun intended. He puts ice in all these whiskeys. So if it's underwhelming, it's underwhelming.
It's cost constrained, so 47%. So it's quite smooth for cost constrained.
Yes, it is quite smooth.
Yeah,
We should go a bit easy on it.
absolutely.
But okay, going back to East Africa.
So you know when I would start? 1990. Zimbabwe is actually bigger than Kenya.
And our GDP then
GDP-wise.
was around what?
8 billion.
So since 1990, we've gone from about 8 to about.
We actually went down.
Okay, but end result, we're on about 20.
No.
No, about
16.
15, 16. Yeah.
16. So
And-
we've
and
doubled
they,
in
and they've gone from
30
about 6
years.
to 102.
They were 7.8 then.
Okay, let's be pedantic. To about 100.
It's always useful.
Well,
100 to 103
when did you
now.
start being pedantic?
No,
No,
Sarcasm.
you didn't get it.
No, okay. That went over my head.
so they've grown 15 times.
Yeah.
15,
Over the
16
same.
times.
Same period.
And we've
And
grown
what's
2.5
actually
times.
quite significant, which everybody doesn't realize, is if you look at the entire Africa, usually the sprouts of growth come from HIPC or from commodities or something of sort.
They have
That's
no
unusual.
commodities.
No commodities.
3% of GDP comes from minerals. 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. 3.6 if we're being pedantic.
Yes.
I read something.
Tourism.
Again, but even the tourism is a small contributor
Yeah.
to GDP. They
So,
just have a
I mean,
nice.
it was significant at that
at that
time,
time.
but they've actually grown at, on average, 3% over that period. So it's not significant growth.
It's not phenomenal.
It's not phenomenal, but it's
They've just
consistent.
avoided doing dumb things.
Dumb things.
Yes,
They've
this is exactly what I was going to say. If you
avoided
wanna, if
totally doing
which
dumb
is why
things.
we, given where we are, should actually be more ambitious and look at case studies like Singapore instead of Kenya, because Kenya didn't do anything particularly clever. They just avoided
No,
doing
but,
dumb
but let's
things.
But
but
that's
let's
actually
but
the
let's
point.
pick that one because that's the one that's been picked.
Mm.
Let's pick it and let's study it. It's a case study. They didn't grow. They didn't do fantastic things. They just didn't do dumb ones.
Mhm.
Do you know over the
And
last
when
10
dumb
years?
things happened, they resolved the dumb things. Like the killings, that was a
People
really
forgotten
dumb
about
thing.
it.
Well, we've forgotten about it because they actually went through a process of atonement and actually trying to understand what had happened and ensure that it never happened again. And 12 years later, the true protagonists are actually one party now.
And they're going to hand.
You know.
So this guy's going to hand over power to
Well,
someone.
if he wins the election, but he's campaigning for him.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm.
But
Okay. Okay. We won't go into how elections work in Africa. But do you know how much?
But don't you think, like, if you look at the last 10 years, and if you look at Kenyatta, one of the things that would inform economic policy is the fact that the outgoing president actually had significant skin in the game. He
But
was an
what-
extremely wealthy.
But what about Kibaki?
or Dinga.
They've just not done
Done
dumb things.
To run a country, you don't need to do great things. Just don't do dumb things.
What do you think has been their greatest money supply growth in the last decade?
I have no idea.
15% per annum. And I think it's only for a couple of years that it's been above 10. The rest of the last decade, their money supply growth has been below 10%.
So they haven't been printing, basically.
No, they don't print. Well, they print a little bit, but probably more in line with the growth.
But that's
of
an
the
order of magnitude less than us, because if you look at our last numbers, I think the latest money supply growth numbers are for February this year, and we are at 140%. So that's more than 10 times what they're doing. And that's a lagging indicator. There's probably a good reason why the latest numbers are February numbers, because I suspect things have gone much worse since.
And do you know what Kenya's inflation is? Well, the last numbers, sort of last year or whatever, it's probably gone up with the rest of the world now. But there was 6%. Most of the last decade, they've had inflation below 10%.
Yeah, I mean, we've destroyed value on an epic level. I mean, one of the interesting measures that was announced is that people who had money in 2016, there's going to be a plan to compensate them for their value loss. Because if you had 1,000...
No, but just go back to George's point. Do you know what George is actually saying? That they have had a stable economy for the last 30, 40 years. So they could actually plan. They could actually decide, that, you know what, this is what we're going to do with our economy. Zimbabwe has never had single-digit inflation. That's what he's trying to tell you, that the first decade of Zimbabwe, the average inflation rate was 13%. That's high.
Yep.
You know what they do when they've got a mega project? They've now just built. When I started going to Kenya, 2007, around the time you started going,
Yeah.
they had a traffic problem.
Yeah,
Coming
you needed like 4 hours to get from
from the
the
airport
airport to
the city
the
center.
CBD.
So they widened the road, made it a dual carriageway. The time maybe came down to about 1.5 to 2 hours. Then they said, no, this doesn't work. Let's build a new expressway that goes on top of the other roads. So people that are not doing local business can just get on that and go away. So
Motorway. Yeah.
they've just built a 27-kilometer expressway at the cost of 500 or 600 million US dollars. That literally they got a road that goes on top of another road for 27 kilometers. This is in Africa. Eh? We're not talking crazy parts of the world here. Do you know how they finance it? Do you know how they don't finance it?
They don't print.
They don't print. Yeah. International bonds.
Yeah. Investors believe in their country. So investors say,
And-
hey,
and
we'll give you money.
believe
You
me,
build
it's
it.
still a corrupt country. You know, money, about 1.2 billion euro just disappears from the fiscus. You know, so they still do dumb things, but I think
It's the scale.
Yeah, it's the scale of dumb things.
No.
Relative scale.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
it's still a corrupt country.
No,
I mean,
and corruption
let's
is
not-
dumb. Okay,
yeah.
yes. But they just don't do like stupidly dumb things. They just continue doing sound economic things. And look where that's got them.
You know what people
3%
always-
of the economy is minerals. Nobody even knows what minerals they have. What do they have? Tin or something?
But George, I've got a question for you. Don't you think that that is precisely why they're successful? Because commodity countries, by their nature, bring in a lot of conflict. And perhaps that's why they don't succeed. I mean, look at the volatility in Angola. And it's precisely because of a commodity. I mean, how can an economy grow up to $120 billion about 10 years ago? It's now half of that. It's now 60.
Saudi Arabia
billion.
is a commodity country.
Yeah, but then Saudi Arabia is more the exception than the rule.
I'm thinking.
In
my brain
Nigeria,
is processing.
I mean,
You're proving my point. I mean, Nigeria, for all intents and purposes, must be as
is a
big
failed
as
state.
America. Yeah, it is a failed state. If for all intents and purposes, for the discussions that we're having here, for the purposes of the discussions
Okay,
that we're
Australia.
having here, I think, again, it's an exception of the rule.
Okay, I'll keep picking exceptions then.
Yeah, no, please do.
America.
no, America is an
Brazil?
innovation economy.
Yeah, it's
Brazil?
not a... Would you say Brazil is a successful country?
It is.
No, it's another one, because Brazil and America at some point were actually growing at the
But
same.
but
And
okay.
should have been. So Brazil is I think, $1 trillion economy. It should actually be 14.
But if you look at Angola, if you look at Nigeria, if you look at Equatorial Guinea, or like in
failed
Africa,
states.
the countries that relies a lot on natural resources, those resources tend to be controlled by the state. Like it's also the state's biggest source of revenue. But in our case, if you look at the biggest,
The same will be true in Saudi Arabia and in.
yeah. So, but in
in
Zimbabwe,
Australia.
if you think about our biggest exports, right, whether it's platinum, whether it's gold, whether it's tobacco, none of these things are actually controlled by the state, and they don't have an outsized contribution to the state's.
Oh, you mean we've run down?
revenue? No, not so much that it.
No, I get his point.
You know.
We've run down the.
So basically, what? So I
the
think
entities that actually.
all the oil states and other resource-based states that are really corrupt and have failed to grow their economies, it's because the government of the day gets so much money from whether it's oil or whatever major resource it is, that they're completely indifferent to the rest of the economy. They don't actually care.
You know
Yeah,
what?
that's the Dutch disease. But I think I will go.
Whereas in
beyond
Zim,
that.
we don't have that problem because
Well,
if you look at
I think we
the
do have the
spread
problem.
of
We do have the
the
resource.
government's
Okay,
revenue,
I'll tell you what
it's
the
spread
resource-
much more. It's much more diverse
No,
than
it's-
in a
that's not even-
petro state.
That's not even the issue. I'll tell you what the issue is with resource states and why they're prone to conflict. Is because you can control resources, right? So you can go to the DRC. All you need to do is you have a gun and you can control a piece of land, and that's it. And that piece of land has some economic value of sort.
Mhm.
Whereas in Kenya, you can't do that.
Well, you can control a piece of land, but
But
to
you're not
what
getting
end
anything.
is-
Yeah.
to what
It's
end?
absolutely. Or South Korea.
2/3 of the country is arid.
Yeah. Or South Korea, right? You could control a piece of land, but
There's nothing there.
there's nothing there. Whereas everywhere else, whether it's the DRC or Angola or Zimbabwe, which you can still do, right? And when you've got a particular mineral, unfortunately, the way the world is Trafigura, Glencore, all the major commodity countries, all the major commodity
Traders.
companies will want that resource.
Mhm.
And they don't care whether the governance is right or not. And I think that's why it's prone to conflict. And that's why, if you come back to Zim, why you have this idea that you can close the banks, right? It's because to them, it's still the resource mentality. They think that you can actually control what can happen, the extraction and who gets what. They still think
But isn't it
that in a
fundamentally?
knowledge economy you
Mhm.
can control that, but you can't in a knowledge economy. In a knowledge economy, and Kenya is a knowledge economy, and I think that's where you were going, right? That actually, when you look at
exactly what you're about to say. That's what I was saying.
when you look at Kenya, what makes Kenya successful? It's because it's transitioning to a knowledge economy. When you look at even Lagos, even Nigeria, if you really think about it, they're transitioning from being a resource-based country to a knowledge economy. Whereas Zim, we're trying to move back, we're trying to regress, right? So if you look at minerals and the significance of minerals in Zimbabwe, that was not always the case. But yet, here we are in 2022, and we're regressing. We think that our diamonds, our gold, our platinum is actually
You
more
see,
So
important.
you
but
think-
that's
you
very
think-
interesting, Tinashe, because
That's a very interesting
because
theory.
you're a big critic of the Rhodesian economy, but that's exactly what you're describing.
Mhm.
Is exactly what what UDI achieved to move us from agriculture and mining to an industrialized country.
Yeah, and we're saying we're actually moving backwards. That's
also,
the
I think-
argument.
I-
My
I-
argument
I-
is,
I think-
if you look at government's thrust, policy thrust, right?
So
They get
So
excited.
the UDI economy was
But
good.
but
No,
also.
no, it wasn't. But I'm saying we're actually going
we're
backwards.
doing
We're doing worse. We're doing worse. And
But I also
instead
think
of
it's a
in
fantasy.
2022,
People
we-
like to frame the industrialization that happened between post UDI between 1965 and 1980 as a positive. You know, we built all this industry pursuant to import substitution, right? But actually, if you look at the numbers, the macroeconomic numbers, the economy actually shrunk. They would actually have been better off if they had addressed the sanctions and opened up the economy and continued on the path of growing agriculture and growing mining.
along the lines of Australia,
well, that's the trajectory we were actually
Australia
taking.
and Canada.
That's the trajectory we were taking. But to your point, it was an unnecessary war. It's that simple and straightforward. Why were you fighting a war? Totally unnecessary.
Well,
But
there were these people that had a problem with being excluded.
no, what I mean is for Rhodesia, it was unnecessary to declare independence and then to get into that war. That should never have been. That should never have happened. But the point that I'm trying to make is, look at every time a government minister gets excited, right? It has something to do with the minerals. So they've got this idea that our mineral output will
I have a
be
feeling
a $15 billion economy.
I have a feeling this today you're flirting dangerously close with libel laws.
No, this is something that they actually say, right? $15 billion mining economy. Like, this is the 21st century.
But that doesn't comport with the numbers. I mean, I think mining
Yeah.
as a percentage of GDP is less than 20%.
You're being extremely generous today.
It's
Let's
close
be
to 10.
pedantic.
Yes, it's close to
9%.
it's 9%. So
Yeah.
wow,
At its best. Otherwise, over the last decade, it's actually 6%.
wow.
Yeah. But this is the point I'm trying to make, that
But isn't it-
EcoCash, so for example, an innovative thing like EcoCash, like banking sector, we've actually done pretty well as far as the banking sector is concerned. And the innovation that has happened with EcoCash, look at how they will close down EcoCash. They will close down the banking sector because they don't see it. They don't see the knowledge economy. They're not going to look at EcoCash and think, oh, wow, EcoCash on its own creates more GDP than our entire mining.
An interesting parallel to Kenya when you talk about EcoCash is, just like Kenya, the biggest contributor to the economy is services.
Mm.
And just like Kenya, the two comparative advantages that we have are people and logistical
Location.
And Kenya has really capitalized on having a port and being the gateway to East Africa. And they've grown their telecoms and IT industry.
While also being the more stable and the more sane one of the East Africans.
Well, there's that too. Well, look, they do have bouts of killing each other in Kenya too.
No,
But
true,
they
when you
quick-
consider everyone else,
they put a lid on it.
Because Ethiopia is perennially at war.
Somalia,
Rwanda, Somalia is a failed
Burundi.
state Eritrea. Yeah.
Djibouti. Well, Djibouti, they don't kill each other, but there's about 3 of them there. Maybe this is a good place for us to take a break before we get into any more trouble. We'll be right back.
Zaganaka, Aywa, Zaganagana, Aywa, so we don't, so let us sing. Aywa, Jaruga, Bakuvira Besu, Mira Bandore, to Mira Bagao, Mira Bandore, to Mira Bagao, Zaganaka, Aywa. Zaganagana, Aywa, Ndagakara Ndogut, Aujamira, Abajina Nogunet, Anabata Wariket, Bajina Nogumus, Anabata Wariket, Zaganaka, Aywa, Zaganagana, Aywa, so we don't, so let us sing. Bakuvira Besu, Mira Bandore, to Mira Bagao, Mira Bandore, to Mira Bagao, Zaganaka, Aywa, Zaganagana.
Welcome back. Yeah, but, fantastic things happening in the rest of the world, or not. Let's come back closer to home. So here I am on the 10th floor of a beautiful brand new 5-star hotel in Nairobi on a Saturday morning, on a Sunday morning,
yeah.
going through my WhatsApps from the previous night. And lo and behold, what do I see?
The madness.
There's a statement circulating. It's appearing in all my groups. The president has made some announcements. I couldn't make it a tale of it. I was still hungover.
So, in a nutshell, what they have done is they've stopped all lending. I mean, subsequent to that, we've seen the Reserve Bank coming in and sort of allowing other lending to continue. I think offshore lending and anything to do with
That's
farming
really
or
a misnomer.
agriculture.
I mean, like,
But the context is they've stopped lending. All lending was stopped forthwith. Never mind whether it's legal or not, but that's what they said. They created another exchange rate that they called willing buyer, willing seller, which
Well, it
is
was there
a
already.
buyer. Yeah,
Isn't
but
that the auction?
now- no, that's not the auction. And it's up to 5,000, and it used to be 1,000. They still have the auction. It's still going on.
Can you stop saying they and say we?
I-
We
I-
have
I-
an auction. We have.
I think we need to now. We need to accept certain things. That in this country, there are those with power, and there are us without power. I think let's make that distinction very, very clear, because that's why they can come out and say, you know what, we're stopping lending. I can't be part of that, right? You're not even part of it.
Well,
even
I
if
can't
you're
borrow.
a banker.
I can't borrow. So
Yeah,
So
aren't
we
you so
don't have
glad
lending.
that you're not running a bank anymore?
This week, remember I used to run a bank that was 99.9% reliant on lending.
Yeah.
So this week I was very happy that I'm not.
So,
participating.
but when you really look at it, you look at the lending that used to happen during your time, during dollarization time. Loans and advances was up to $4 billion US. Right now, using the power market rate, it's less than $1 billion. But as of February,
official
it was 1.5.
So
Officially,
official
it will be
maybe
about
two.
2 point something, 3 billion as of February. But by now, it should have moved to around $2 billion, which is half of what it used to be, right? And when you look at the capital adequacy, liquidity ratios, loan to deposit ratios, everything were way below what
I mean,
the benchmarks
I think
should
it's
be.
telling if you look at the actual regulator's position, because before the Zim dollar came back, the tier one banks were expected to be capitalized at 100 million US dollars. And now the aspiration is 30 million. So they've acknowledged the destruction of 70% of the capital base of the banks. That's massive.
And they haven't been growing at inflation rate. That's the other thing. So the lending hasn't
Okay, but
kept up with
you guys,
inflation.
focus. Statement on Saturday evening.
Or Sunday.
The president works on
Saturday
Saturday
evening.
The
The
president
Saturday
works on
evening.
Saturdays.
Well, this was an extraordinary event. Let's take it as such. So this was something.
we suddenly realized. Carry on.
It required the message straight from the president to just tell us just how serious this is. The context is these are new measures to sort of put a lid on inflation because I think
So
the
to control
15.5
inflation, we're gonna stop lending.
stop lending because the belief is banks or people are using banks to borrow money
Okay.
from.
Okay,
and-
yeah, that's one thing. What else are we doing?
Okay, so and that's in your forte, right? We've increased the capital gains tax from actually 5%. From what I hear, the capital gains tax was 5%, but someone told the president that it's actually 20%, which is not true. It's actually
Oh, there actually is no capital gains tax on
Well,
marketable
the-
securities.
well now.
But it's been announced.
I think
It's
real
not
estate.
yet law. It's an announcement that it'll be 40% if you buy shares and sell them inside 270 days. You'll be subject to 40% capital gains tax because speculation is bad and is driving up.
Anyway, okay. So that's two things. What else was in the statement that got everyone?
Okay,
So if
they've
you buy shares and
increased-
you sell them in less than 9 months, you're going to lose 60% of your money.
They've increased
Or 40% of your money.
the IMMT
Of your profits.
From 2% to 4% of Nostro now.
So if you
So if you
transfer
got-
US dollars locally,
Locally, you are charged 4%.
donate 4% to Mtuli.
Yeah, you do that.
Okay. And what else?
So I think those are the major.
And if you withdraw
measures.
US dollars?
If you withdraw, I think the previous laws still hold. So if you're corporate, if you withdraw US dollars, you get slapped 20%. They change it into Zim
No,
dollars.
that's if you deposit.
Oh yeah, when you're transferring. Yeah.
If
No,
you
if you withdraw, no, I think.
No, I mean,
Anyway.
MMT is
well, and then the other thing
all
was
electronic
tax.
transactions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's come to this. So we say you can't
Tax is now at the free market, willing buyer, willing seller.
when you have to
price.
pay your
Tax.
on US dollars. So what
On
used to be
Zim
US dollar
dollar.
taxes can now be paid in Zim dollars.
Yeah, but then that Zim dollar
At
is
the willing
now
buyer, willing
at
seller.
willing buyer, willing
That's a good
seller.
thing.
No.
How's that not a good thing? We've sat here and criticized the government for not taking, well, Busisa criticized the government
Yeah.
for not taking
Zim dollars.
Zim dollars for taxes.
Yeah, I think we should have one price for Zim dollar to US dollar. We shouldn't have 10
But
different
it's less
prices.
bad. That
Oh, that's your.
Characterization.
anyway, let's go
less
back
bad.
to the other things.
We should just have one price.
So what's
all
the
prices.
impact of stopping lending? What does it mean?
Well, the economy stops, right? Because if you.
Oh, you're being dramatic. Look, I think there are two problems with
no,
this.
but I haven't even explained.
The economy doesn't stop.
No, I haven't
we-
even explained. I haven't even explained. The economy stops. The normal economy stops because almost all businesses rely on overdraft facilities, on some lending of sort, to survive, to actually manage their cash flows, their working capital. In fact, the mere existence of banking is working capital management for the economy, for the entire economy. I can't imagine.
what percentage of
somebody-
our economy is Zim dollar based?
And I knew that's the argument you're going to make, and I was waiting for it. So in my banking days, we identified all the key sectors in the economy, identified their value chains. Yes, big chunks of those value chains were informal, but there is a point of consolidation in every value chain where the working capital can be injected.
Mhm.
So you take the guys. Give me an example of
any business,
of
actually.
a sector that you say is highly informal.
Retail.
People selling mabero.
Right. So you sell Mabero. The person selling Mabero on the street at the end is not the person who imported them. There's a bigger player who's importing them. But let's say, okay, that bigger player is surviving without
Credit.
Without credit. They need fuel to import them, and nobody's trading fuel with their own money. It's all borrowed funds. They need vehicles, and you can imagine.
For an
So at some
economy-
stage where you cut off the credit, you're going to impact the person who's trading Mabero.
In fact, everybody's affected because working capital, and I'm not even talking about capital expenditure. And that's why part of the reason why lending has actually been reduced is because the economy has actually been.
But hasn't a lot of our economy become a cash economy?
No, it hasn't.
No, because there has to be this
It
point of
hasn't.
accumulation. There's got to be a warehouse somewhere. So, let's say you're buying this let's say George bought this from a street trader.
Mhm.
There's a warehouse full of these in Harare somewhere,
Mhm.
and that warehouse is funded.
But not even that. A lot of micro lenders lend to informal traders.
Yep, they do.
Yeah. So everything is around working capital. So I'm not even talking about capital expenditure here. I'm just purely looking at working capital cycles. And when you look at working capital cycles, most people are paid their salaries out of an overdraft or some sort of facility from a bank. Most businesses are importing. In fact, I can't imagine anyone who's importing using cash
On a meaningful scale.
on a meaningful scale. In fact, your counterparty will not even accept cash.
Okay, take cooking oil, right? You're importing crude palm oil from the Far East. It's going to take several weeks after you place your
6
order
weeks. Yeah.
for the crude palm oil to arrive in the country. And then you got to process it, pack it, sell it, and then your customer is going to take another 30 days to pay you. Meanwhile, you've got to order another batch and another batch from the Far
Okay,
East.
all right.
So
And you
how
need
are
to
you
pay
financing?
salaries.
And you need to pay salaries. You need to process.
So
how are you going to finance
so
this?
let's take this to its natural conclusion. What does this mean if this is still the policy of the day 3 months from now?
There'll be no economy.
The first thing is to just accept that you stop the economy. Now, Zimbabweans being innovative, you will find that the cost of operating is just going to increase because there will be somebody who will be able to give you that bridging finance.
But
They
much
will
more
be-
expensive
in
than
the
the
informal
banks.
sector. You will start seeing the informal sector starting to organize itself and doing the lending, and it will just be extremely
No, but
costly.
I think there'll be shortages. I think.
Yeah, no,
There's
that's
just
inevitable.
There's just facilities. There's just certain
Inevitable.
sectors that cannot be financed any way other than through a formal structure.
Meaningfully, yeah.
You can't finance the milling sector. You can't finance the fuel sector. You can't finance the mining economy outside formal funding. I mean, who's going to put $20-30 million on the table for a milling company?
So okay, fine. If it's as dire as you guys are making it out to be, and I've got no good reason so far to, I can't identify any big holes in the argument that you guys are making. Where is the rest of the business community in being outraged?
Well, they've been out there.
No, they're not. We haven't seen any statement from BAZ. Maybe you can tell us
Well,
why is it? This is the fourth day or fifth day, and we haven't heard anything.
I don't know.
from
I'm not a
BAZ.
banker anymore.
Could you
I'm not
no?
a banker.
Could you
But
help
what-
us understand
what
their
I know
thinking?
is- what-
Because you're
what I
no
know-
longer a banker.
what I
Maybe
know
you
is
can
that-
give us an idea
What I know
of
is
what
that
they're thinking.
they had a meeting with the governor
Mhm.
the afternoon, the first afternoon after the thing on Monday. They had a
Okay.
meeting with the governor, and then the next day, the Reserve Bank issued a statement on their behalf. Well, okay, issued a letter to them, which I read as a statement on their behalf to summarize the meeting they'd had, which is there's no wiggle room in here.
Mhm.
We are
We
just
saw-
determined to drive off this cliff.
We saw
On Wednesday,
we
they
saw one
then
bank purportedly make a
issue a
statement.
statement. Well, not a statement, but an analyst.
We saw something that might have been an internal document of one bank that was quickly disowned by the particular financial institution.
Look, it's not a bank that made that statement. The bank belongs to a group, and I suspect one of its sister companies made the statement.
It's the same thing that he's saying.
Yeah, whatever you say,
Whatever.
but there was a document authored in that bank, and when we talk about a bank, we're being broad, right? So
Yeah.
when we talk about Citibank, we don't go and look where their license is. We talk about Citibank
As the
all
group,
over,
yeah.
all over the world.
And many people, many banks, in fact, all the banks did some sort of analysis. So it's not peculiar to that particular bank. All the banks.
So I mean, read between the lines. The banks are under pressure. You've got a scenario
What
which-
would you do?
There's not much you can do, right? The guy who's telling you what to do is the guy who issues your license. He's the guy who inspects you. So what are you going to do?
So that's
Pick
the
a fight?
fundamental
I mean,
problem.
this is like you've just been filming Friday Drinks. You get stopped at a roadblock, and the cop has got a problem with your tail light, but you know there might be a whiff of whiskey in your breath, and now you want to start picking and criticizing his uniform. See how that's going to end for you.
No,
Or do you accept that my tail light doesn't work?
Look, I think this is fundamentally different because I understand the dynamic that you've described, and ordinarily,
Are you admitting to drinking and driving?
No, I don't drink and drive.
I understand the dynamic, right? And I think that that's only true within certain parameters. Okay, if your regulator takes a policy action that you can see means you're going to be bankrupt in 3 months, I think it's very different from a different policy action that increases your cost by 5%.
Would you rather have your license revoked now, or see if
Or
you
go
can,
bankrupt in 3
or
months?
see if you can write this out in 3 months and maybe he'll change his mind?
Write it out.
No, but if you come together as an industry and you're not, and you push back without attacking anybody, you just say, look, guys,
They haven't
these are,
done so in the last 42 years.
but
Or
they have
56 years.
But they've never been in a position where they've never been in a position that is as dire as they are today.
No, they have.
You have forgotten of this little period at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, where there was no monetary system in the country.
Or 2016 when you introduced the bond note.
No, but
Well,
bankers.
there's a reason why Barclays and Standard Chartered have left this country. There's a reason why. That's all you can do. You just hang your boots and you move on.
You vote with your feet.
You
And
move on.
the remaining
Don't have an
the remaining
alternative.
regional banks or non-Zimbabwean banks. Tomorrow morning, you and me, let's take a walk to one of them and see if we can open an account there and see how easy it is for us to borrow. They've basically insulated themselves from Zim, and they deal with large regional or international businesses, and that's the only business they're doing here. In other words, with people with whom they sit across the table and agree.
In Johannesburg, okay, or somewhere else.
Even if it's here, they agree that whatever's happening out there is nonsense. We know how things
What
are
we're
supposed to
doing.
work. Let's operate on that basis.
This is very depressing.
Yeah.
We finally made you depressed. You're finally coming around to the conclusion.
So how do you think this will play out? Because this is clearly, I mean,
it's unsustainable.
I mean,
like it reminds me of,
and I keep
you know, the
saying
joke about the
this.
guy who decides it's a great idea to jump off the roof of a very tall building, you know. And in this joke, the guy's falling past the 9th floor, and somebody asks him, you know, so how's it going? Do you still think it was a great idea to jump off this roof? And his response is, it's going great so far. Like, I mean, is this where we are? I mean, maybe that's where we are. Where we just, you know, it's going great so far.
No, I think if you listen to some of the voices that are speaking now, I happen to be in a few discussion groups. And if you hear the unanimity in some of the groups, I think we are now coming to a point where people are saying, no, this can't work.
I think I will still maintain that our politics is quite disjointed, and it's quite there's a clear disparity between our politics and our economics. So I don't think it will. While it is true that it will affect our economics, I don't think that there's political will to change things.
No, but where the
don't think
political will be found is when containers of flour, containers of cooking oil fail to get out of bond because they haven't been paid for. And there's no bread on the shelves and there's no oil on the shelves. People are going to have serious discussions with each other. You know, like, I mean, the three of us know, I think, that
I think-
whenever we have petroleum shortages in this country,
You're making an economic argument, and I cannot fault it.
but it becomes a political argument when it gets to that. We know that whenever there's petroleum shortages, it's not because there's physically no petroleum in this country. It's there in Masasa, and the people that own the product are not releasing it because they haven't been paid.
So if I
And
were to
you'll
take
get
his
more of this.
analogy, if I were to take his analogy in the political kingdom, right? It's going good
Great
so
so
far because for a politician, it's what's ahead of him, immediately what's ahead of him that he must address. That he dies, you know, 2-3 stages or iterations later He's not thinking that far.
No, but this particular.
But I beg to differ as well. Okay,
No,
I'll let you finish.
Karen.
So I think that we've seen with SI 127, for example, there was
You have to remind us which one. They all have numbers. They're all crazy. Which one is it?
you know, this is the one that basically said you can't accept US dollars in retail. Everything must be in Zim dollars, and I don't think it was necessarily because of outrage from the business community. Although there was outrage, there was feedback that, look, this is going to cause serious problems. And there was maybe not a complete U-turn, but there was an accommodation there where they realized that this was going to be bad. And I suspect, because, you know, in thinking about all of this, I didn't get to as dire a place as you guys arrived to. And now that I realize how bad this is, it's actually much worse than I thought. And I think it's going to manifest very quickly. And I think that the current, the government of the day is given to pivoting. You know, when things blow back, when they get the opposite outcome.
Bless his soul. This guy always finds the silver
No,
lining.
but I think I tend to actually agree with him politically. So I agree with you economically, but I agree with him politically that all they just need to do is to pivot at the right time. So when the shortages are there, they will find another bogeyman. And that bogeyman will be the saboteur or the traitor that they will attribute the shortages to. So as far as they're concerned, it's going great so far. And that's what's important, because when they made that statement, now everybody is coming to them, and as far as they're concerned, they've survived whatever was happening politically. See, that's
so now they can listen.
No, it's not about listening. It's about until the next crisis. Can they survive? We don't know what was happening politically. That's all I'm saying. That what we get to see is just the manifestation. So when we see them panicking and acting like this, what we are just seeing is just the manifestation.
But isn't it obvious, or isn't it clear? Maybe I'm reading it wrong, because over the last 30 days, we saw the currency devalue north of 30% on the power market, right? And then you've seen this aggressive policy response. The last time this happened, some accounts were frozen, a bunch of people were arrested.
The last 6 months. This has been going on for the last 6 months.
No, but the last 18 months, the last 24 months.
We need to take a break. I will top up my glass. You need to... No more chocolate. No more sweets for you. You can go powder your nose. We'll be right back.
Daidama kore mazana mana Sawira huya timburangana Timburunga tichine mkana Handirambe isheni novuma Kanamati yangu nguva ya gwana Sawira huya timburangana Timburunga tichine mkana Daita isi vara mangwana Taingovunza ndewani mukana Dainda isi vara mangwana Taingovunza nderani jana Sawira huya timborangana Timboronga tichine mkana Sawira huya timborangana Timboronga tichine mkana Daita isi vara mangwana Taingovunza ndewani mukana Dainda isi vara mangwana Taingovunza nderani jana Sawira huya timborangana Timboronga tichine mkana.
Welcome back. That was a depressing segment. But unfortunately, we must
Carry on.
we must ask,
I don't know why you like using these words like depressing.
because we're human. We've got emotions.
Not exactly. I think let's
What
call
do you
it
not
what
exactly?
it
Are you
is.
not human?
No, we are human, but I think that in our analysis or when we talk about these things, let's just talk reality. It's not about optimism or depression or whatever. It's not about feelings. We don't care how you feel.
We're feeling.
It's about.
I care how I feel. I care how George feels. I even care how you feel.
No, absolutely not. It's not even.
Is that why
about
you make fun of his dressing all the time?
No, that's you. That would be you. I make fun of his tea all the time, but
You have
not his
no
dressing.
sense of fashion, no sense of grace.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we
Yeah.
are. But I think that it's not about how we feel. It's just calling it what it is. And
Calling
I
a
think
spade
that-
a spade.
Yeah, and I think that Zimbabweans have gone for very long on this patriotic optimism. And I think that's the most dangerous thing, because then we don't really deal with our reality. We think that things are going to get better. Things will be
themselves.
okay by themselves. But no, you have to engage. If you look at what happened, I'm glad we sort of started going to East Africa more or less the same time. What it took, what had happened is worse than maybe equivalent to Gukrawundi in Zim, right? But what
No, it's worse.
worse,
Because you
yeah,
you
it's
had
neighbor.
mobs. You had mobs.
Yeah,
Neighbors
exactly.
turning on neighbors.
But what it took to get that society working again shows the political will that you will never find in these parts. And I think it's time we deal with the reality. Like I said, I attended you will remember this, a strategy session where someone said, but Zim is not uncertain. It's pretty certain. We all know what's going to happen.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay,
do?
so,
One way.
the point that was made was that it's perpetually going to get worse, which I'm not.
So,
Sure.
so I think if we deal with that reality, that right now there's not going to be any turn anytime soon, and it will perpetually get worse, then we can actually start dealing with the
But
issues.
no, but I think what we're all trying to do here is to cause a turn. We don't want
it takes a lot,
But
and
who's
there's
the-
no
but-
political will,
okay.
and there's this it's disjointed. So our politics and our economics are moving one way. So you guys are depressed economically, but the politicians are happy. Everything is going well. The roads, they didn't even touch the roads, right? The infrastructure spend will continue. Zisco will be bought.
Well, no, this is 0% money supply.
Oh, come on,
Oh,
George,
come
please.
on.
Okay, anyway, let's get back to the statement. Let's get back to the statement and before this guy launches a manifesto.
If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Anyway, so
We are looking
So
for
the-
bridge.
le- anyway, let's talk about this issue on the stock exchange that you're very passionate about. So
Well, I wouldn't say I'm very passionate about it.
you make a
Well,
living from it. I hope you. I
Yeah,
hope you're
one
passionate.
hopes you're passionate about it.
Oh, it's sad, actually, and I think it's born of more ignorance than malice.
Or
I-
both.
No. I think so. There's this misconception out there. There's this false narrative that when stock prices run, when this when the stock market is having a bull run and prices are going up a lot, that then drives activity on the power market and contributes to the significant movement that we've seen on the power market over the last 30 days. And I think superficially, I can understand why somebody would think that. But, I think that it's which is why I'm making the case that I think it's founded more in ignorance than malice. Because you can't buy shares on our local base without cleared funds in your account. So
Cleared funds in what currency?
in Zim dollars, right?
So wait, you can't buy shares.
Well,
with US dollars.
there's a VFX, right, which is the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, where everything trades in US dollars. But the local base, which is the one is
Zimbabwe
that is
Stock Exchange.
yes, which has been the target of a lot of derision
Vitriol.
from
Let's
policymakers.
say criticism.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You use your words, I'll use mine. Derision, vitriol, vicious attacks.
Okay.
Because the market has been described as having these bad actors, but the reality is that the equity market is a cash market, right? So for anybody to actually buy any share and push up its price, they actually have to have the cleared funds in their bank account in the first instance. So unlike lending, where somebody can make the case that, look, the banks via lending are engaged in credit creation and increasing liquidity, which is ending up on the power market. We can criticize that argument, but it's a legitimate argument from that purely technical perspective, that banks via lending are engaged in credit creation. An equity market is incapable. It's got no capacity to create credit, right? So prices don't go
not
up.
the way ours is structured anyway.
Prices don't go up because buyers
Think they're going to have money.
think they're going to have money. Buyers actually have money, and they go into the market and they drive
And
up
where's
prices.
the money coming from?
So the money is
Okay, wait. Pause. Just so everybody understands. What Rufaro is saying is, if you want to buy shares, you must go to a broker and put money in a bank account in your name that is set aside, and the whole government system around the stock exchange makes sure that there's money in a bank account with your name
For
To
a
pay-
transaction to happen.
for you to buy the shares you've just placed an order on.
absolutely. So you can't.
So where's the money coming from?
So it's a myth that there's.
So where's the money coming from?
From
Where
the
are
banking
buyers?
sector. It's
Where
from-
are these buyers?
So everybody who's buying shares on the
Are you
ZSE
pointing
has a
at- are you
bank
pointing
account.
at-
No, I'm
another
going to
broker?
ask you a question.
Mm.
If we look at the top buyers in the last 2 years, who are they?
It's a mixed.
Yeah, would you
Lot.
like to give us names?
Uh,
We've seen a number of M&As happening, mergers and acquisitions.
It's a-
Certainly, they've been pushing the stock prices.
No, okay. I
Who
wouldn't.
are these buyers?
I wouldn't want to. Okay, the way I would characterize it, yeah.
You're not
is-
going to tell us who
I'm
these
not gonna.
buyers
I'm not
are.
going to name names. Absolutely not.
No, fair enough.
But what I will say,
But don't
is-
you think that if you were government, perhaps that's where you would start?
if
Because he's
He's
been very succinct in
No, no, but-
allowing
no,
us to know that
so-
you know, there
so
must
the
be
point is-
money
the
in
point
the
is-
bank.
No,
where's that money coming from?
but you see, you're missing the point. The point Rufaro making is that's not even the
it
issue.
doesn't matter who it is.
No,
What
we need to
matters-
follow
No,
government's
No, but
argument to its
no,
logical
okay, you would like to do
conclusion.
that, so you can make your own argument.
Okay.
But Rufaro's point is that's not even the issue. The issue is that why is there money in the air?
Why is there money looking for a home that then ends up on the ZSE in the first instance?
Where's that
Let's
money
interrogate
coming
that
from?
question.
So where's that money coming from?
So when we say money supply has grown, where's that money coming from?
Mm.
It's coming from the issuer,
Mm.
right? There's only one institution in our country that can create Zim dollars, apart from the banks who are very conservative, by the way, because if you look at loan deposit ratios today versus when we
They're lending a lot less than they've ever lent.
Yeah.
in the last
and their
50%.
loan books in inflation adjusted terms have actually shrunk. So any honest interrogation of the data will tell us that money supply growth is not coming from the banks. It's coming from the issuer. And we know who the issuer is. You know, so I think, you know, but because the issuer
I think
doesn't
that's one instance.
because the issuer does not want to have an honest conversation about the actual source of money supply growth and inflation and movements that cause devaluation of the Zim dollar, they create all these bogeymen, right? Oh, it's the stockbrokers, it's the banks. Tomorrow, who knows who is going to be identified as an economic saboteur? But
I think if we're to take it to its logical conclusion, we should also agree that a lot of the exporters who get these Zim dollars, which they cannot use, right? I'm sure that money eventually finds its
Where did the Zim dollars come from?
from the RBZ. That's exactly what I was trying to get to. That you've got RBZ, you've got the government, which is paying out for all this infrastructure spend. A lot of those guys get Zim dollars. What do they do with the Zim dollars?
Where does the government get the money to pay?
they print it, they create it out of thin air. And this
No, I think while you are correct, the sequence is very important. Because sometimes the Reserve Bank doesn't know that this money has been created.
How can the Reserve Bank fail to know? The money comes out of a bank account.
No, so when they make a payment, right? If you're told as central bank to make a payment and you didn't have it in your ledger, you didn't have this payment.
You didn't have it on your forecast yet.
On your forecast, you didn't have the forecast, and you are
Told to pay.
You're told to pay. What do you do?
Okay, so they know, but there's nothing they can do about it.
For the longest, since 1980, there's nothing that the RBZ can do anything about it. Because the guy who's making these payments
So the Zim
can
dollar,
make these payments. His check has never bounced.
the central
His
ledger.
credit has never
No. Checks used to bounce in the 1980s under Chizero.
No, they've never.
Oh yes, he was.
No, but you're picking the wrong guy, and you're actually playing into his argument. Your argument is actually that Chizero never wrote checks when he didn't have money.
No. Ministers who wrote checks when their bank accounts were not funded, those checks bounced.
Oh no, okay.
No.
No, but he's talking about the
Treasury.
state. He's talking about the state.
The state.
Well,
The states. Okay, so everywhere else in the world, and you would know this, everywhere else in the world, there's a debt ceiling. Like you,
No, we have one too.
Oh no,
No,
we
we
don't.
don't.
Come on.
It's there in law.
No,
Stay in the
no,
constitution.
in the law. No, we've got about 20%, so we can spend, and then 3 years later we have a condemnation bill. To say, oh, by the way, we overspent 3 years ago.
So we're
We can
authorizing that
just
spending.
We can authorize the spending. It can happen, and we then have a condemnation bill 3 years later to say, oh, we overspent in 2019. Right? That is what
No,
actually
the
happens.
constitution says you can't.
No, the Constitution says you cannot spend more than 20% of the previous. It's not even the Constitution; it's the Finance Act. The Finance Act says you cannot overspend more than 20% of your previous expenditures, government expenditure. But continuously, we've gone above that, right? And you'd think that it would then go to Parliament at least to adjust the new spending, the budget, right? No, we don't do that. We only do so 3 years later through a condemnation bill where we say, oh, by the way, you know what, we overspent. So literally, the government treasury check can never bounce in Zimbabwe. And that's part of our problem for the last 42 years. And it's a relic of the war, the Rhodesian War, right? Because the Rhodesian War, they were in a war and they created this 20% and above purely so that they could fund the war. That's why I said, you know, the war was unnecessary, if you really think about it. And it cost us. But in peacetime, we've kept that law. And it's so unique in the world, where literally you print. Because elsewhere in the world, what happens with the central bank is the government, when they need money, when they're out of money, they need to come to the market,
Issue treasury bills.
and then the central bank then buys the treasury bills. So the market is fully aware that right now, central bank is printing money. But in Zim, we only know after the fact. And if they're not publishing their results, as you know, now it's 3 months behind. We only have the latest figures, it's up to February. So we don't know how much they've actually been spending. And that's very unique to Zimbabwe.
Can you say, sorry, we should be going just now, but you always talk about this term money illusion. But lately it's taken a new meaning to me, and I realize the importance of it. Can you talk about the significance of the statistics being 3 months behind, and in relation to money illusion?
So with money illusion, it's the first guy who got paid by government, right? When he went to government for his road and he got paid, we all didn't know that he got paid.
That they printed money.
That they printed money. That this guy is now coming in and he's beating up all our prices. So everyone else doesn't know, but this guy knows that
Information asymmetry.
eventually everyone will find out that we've printed money. So I need to spend this money as quickly as I can. So money illusion is us being ignorant that actually government has printed money, has paid an invoice with money that they didn't have. So it only cascades to us. So for example, we only know what happened in February now. So in May, that's when we were like, oh, that's what they did in February.
And that's why everybody was bidding more than me in February.
Yeah. So that's the money illusion.
I'm still depressed. I know you say.
So just out of curiosity, how do you think all this ends? And and I like the 3 month period because I don't think in our country we can focus things.
I think it has no effect whatsoever politically. So
let's not
once
go
you
into-
understand that.
No.
Once you understand that, just know that it's always going to degenerate, but it's going to go on forever.
Okay, I don't share your pessimism.
I don't share your pessimism either. I think reality will bite, even before 3 months. I think. I mean, he's talking about something that I haven't read. That they've already published some exceptions to the lending rule. There'll be more and more lending. There'll be more and more exceptions. The rules will be.
So it's going to go
loosened. The rules will be loosened. No, exceptions will be generated.
What will go on, I think, is the chopping and changing, and once in a while we'll do something that's
degenerating.
incredibly counterproductive.
You mean more arbitrage opportunities? Because the minute you create exceptions, it's more. So it's degenerate, right?
This is who we are as Zimbabweans.
So
Arbitrage.
it's degenerating,
We are,
right?
is there such a word as an arbitrager? That's what we are. We were born like this.
Saka iyo kana chinhu ichi chichingoramba chichiora.
No,
Okay.
no. I think it will.
Yeah,
Like
this... I think that's an appropriate song, Mr. Producer.
No, I think the current episode will get better before it gets worse. Where I agree with Tinashe is the long-term trend at the moment.
Of chopping and changing?
Yes, chopping and changing, and chopping and changing in a consistently worse direction will continue unless we start having seriously honest discussions with each other about things that we should and shouldn't be doing.
No, I think unless the politicians have a serious discussion. Unfortunately, it's not up to us because we're not politicians, and we're not political levers.
But don't you think
we don't have the political? We don't have the power levers.
Don't you think part of the problem
until they have a discussion?
Don't you think part of the problem is that because
our good friend Miles has done a lot of work on this, and I thought the political analysts would do. What happened in Nigeria, what happened in Ghana, had nothing to do with the economics. But those that wield political levers sat around the table and then decided, what we've been doing the last 30 years, I think it's I think we can now, we would want to change.
So
until that happens, I don't see any change.
A perspective, I think, time permitting, we can explore.
Well, time is not permitting.
Briefly,
yeah,
right?
Let's hear his argument.
And I suspect that there is an important part of our business community that actually has a lot of access to the policymakers and
is trusted.
and doesn't share our views and is not willing or able to have a discussion about their economic views in the public domain. And they are driving some of these policy actions.
I've got a rebuttal for you, and it's your argument.
I'm speculating.
But it's not even my argument. But Rufaro, this is your continuous argument. What happened when you had rule of mind and then you had rule of law?
We're not having this rabbit hole.
As long as rule of mind rules.
Tinashe, I'm back. Ranga's gone. It's been lovely having you along. And really, as you can see, this is nothing but pub talk. You really,
but this week is quite good.
You really shouldn't take us too seriously. I really enjoyed East Africa. I think I'll be back. Probably not for the same reasons as him, but I think we've got a lot to learn from that part of the world.
Absolutely, I agree.
Especially considering we don't know what we're talking about.
30 years ago, they used to learn from us.
There you have it. Have a lovely weekend. Stay safe. Be good, please. If you can't be good at it.
Cheers.